Hola y bienvenido a Review, la serie en la que puedo volver a jugar y reevaluar juegos de mi era de juegos favorita.
I don't think that's going to work, is it? Hello everybody, welcome to the Review, the series where I get to replay and reassess games from my favourite gaming era. I'm Brian, also known as UKGN Zoidberg, and I think my greatest gaming achievement was completing Super Ghouls and Ghosts on the SNES, something I only actually managed about 6 years ago. The games of the 1980s and early 90s were often a test of a player's endurance, and this was the era that I truly became a gamer. I don't mind a challenge as long as that challenge is a fair one, and the subject of today's video is a company who challenged gamers more than most, whether fair or otherwise. The game that I'm going to be taking a fresh look at in this episode is the action platform game Risky Woods from Dynamic Software and Electronic Arts, which was published on the Amiga in 1992. Whenever the subject of game difficulty rears its head, you'll tend to find that people talk about games from the NES era, or something more modern like the various From Software titles. For me though, my mind always goes back to Spanish developer Dynamic Software. If you grew up playing games in the 8-bit era like me, you are probably already aware of their work. They produced multiple titles for the Commodore 64, Amstrad and Spectrum, and their games were infamous for their high level of difficulty. Regardless of their quality, they produced games that would make the most mild-mannered of gamer want to pull out their hair in frustration. They were founded in 1984 by three brothers, Victor, Ignacio and Pablo Ruiz. Based near Madrid, they were at the forefront of what became known as the golden age of Spanish software, alongside Oprasoft, Toposoft and Ziggurat. Games that were produced during this era included Livingstone, I presume, Mystery of the Nile and the Spectrum conversion of Capcom's Gunsmoke. The first time I heard the name Dynamic was when Codemasters released one of their games for the Spectrum. Vampire was an enjoyable budget platform game which I picked up for $1.99, but it was actually a re-release for the UK market under the title Phantomas 2. Their next few games would be much more high profile thanks to a publishing deal with Ocean Software, who would release them on their Imagine label. Army Moves was the first one to appear and received a mixed reaction from critics, receiving 54% from Crash Magazine, but a maximum 5 out of 5 from Sinclair User. Game Over, Freddy Hardest and Navy Moves all arrived soon after and received a similar mixed reaction from the critics. What marked these games out as a little bit different though was the fact that they mostly came in two parts, offering different types of gameplay in each one, and which one you got depended on which side of the cassette you loaded. Then there was Basket Master, a challenging and hugely enjoyable one-on-one basketball game which I included in my top 100 Spectrum games that I published last month. On its original release in Spain, it was endorsed by Fernando Martin, the first Spaniard to play in the NBA, and it quickly became one of the best-selling Spanish games of all time. The 1988 version of Army Moves that arrived on the Atari ST and Amiga may have carried the Dynamic name, but it was actually a conversion by Ocean's in-house programmers. An overhead motorcycle racing game endorsed by Spanish champion Jorge. Astro Marine Corps and Narco Police were... It's safe to say that the majority of Dynamic's output on the 16-bit machines was not well received by the press. Astro Marine Corps and Narco Police were probably the best of the bunch, although they only received average scores in the 60s. This meant that when previews of Risky Woods started to appear, the magazines were less than enthusiastic in their response. Developed alongside Zeus Software, who had a few 8-bit titles to their name themselves, it was picked up for publication by Electronic Arts. In an interview with Ricardo Puerto over on the Code Tapper website, he goes into how he created the smooth 16-colour parallax scrolling. EA would also go on to publish the game on the Mega Drive with just a few subtle changes later that same year. Sadly, soon after the game's release, Dynamic Software would file for bankruptcy, and Zeus Software would go on to produce the arcade platform game Biomechanical Toy for Jaleco. A third and final game in the Moves trilogy, Arctic Moves, was developed for the Atari ST but never actually released. An Amiga version of that game was made available to download in 2017, and it stands as an interesting footnote to Dynamic's legacy. The Amiga version of Risky Woods can be played today over on Antstream, whereas the Mega Drive and PC versions are available in multiple locations on modern consoles, as well as Steam and GOG. The July 1992 issue of CU Amiga featured a playable demo of Risky Woods on the cover disc. That meant that readers could at least decide for themselves whether or not the 90% score that the game received in its review in the same issue was excessive or not. Reviewer Steve Keane was gushing over the game's presentation and said that the game was utterly addictive. They weren't the only magazine to give it 90% though. Multi-format magazine Zero gave out the same score themselves and said that the game was just as much fun to play as First Samurai. It was a similar story in CMVG too, where they gave it a score of 87% and said that although we've seen games of this type before, we haven't seen any of this quality on the Amiga. Lacking variation and depth, Risky Woods does compensate with plenty of frenzied and atmospheric platform action, is how Amiga Power described the game in their review when they gave it 82%. Other scores from the dedicated Amiga magazines were 84% from the One Amiga, 81% from Amiga Action, and 80% from Amiga Computing. The lowest score came from Amiga Format, who gave the game barely a quarter of a page of coverage. With just 2 small paragraphs and a screenshot, the review surmised that the game was too unfair with too much luck required for completion. They gave it a score of just 65%. With 8 reviews across the UK magazines, the average score was 82.3%, making it the highest rated Amiga game in Dynamics' catalogue. On Lemon Amiga, the user score is 7.32 from just 99 votes, with only 14 people deeming it worthy of more than 8 out of 10. Now though, it's time for the playtest. Let's load the game up and see what I think about it. Okay, so here we go with some Risky Woods. As you can see, you can turn music off and on and sound effects off and on, which is always a good start. And it instantly gives that Ghosts and Goblins look by having this map screen before levels. So I'm playing this on the A500 Mini, and I have actually programmed in the up command to a button. So rather than having to push up on the joystick to jump, I am now going to be able to press a button. So that actually makes it slightly better than the game would be normally. Oh, and there we go. That's instantly lost me some time by picking up the bad apple. This is not a very easy game. You've got the constant onslaught of enemies that just come at you. Oh, and there's another negative power-up as well. Although, thankfully, that didn't take me back too far. The problem that we have here with these power-ups is that they all tend to look exactly the same as the power-ups that aren't going to hurt you. Certainly at first glance, anyway. It would be so much better if you picked up the coins just by walking over them, instead of having to actually press down on the D-pad. But each level requires you to get past these doors here, and you do so by picking up the 2 pieces of a key, and then just simply holding down the fire button to use it. There's also these monks that you need to rescue that are trapped inside statues. Oh, and I've picked up the bad apple again. So I now only have 39 seconds to get through the rest of the level. That's never going to happen. And of course, I drop the majority of my coins when I die. 4, 3, 2, 1. Time out. And that sent me all the way back to the start. Of course it has. And stripped me of all my coins that I collected. Brilliant. It's like the game actually hates the people that are playing it. Well, apparently, according to an interview with the developer, when EA picked the game up for publishing, they did actually request some changes to the difficulty to make the game easier. So I'd hate to think what the game was like before they got it. I can tell you now, 20 gold will not buy you much in the shop between levels. Oh, brilliant! The screen's turned upside down on me as well now. At least when the screen turns upside down, your controls don't change, so it is still up to jump. On the Mega Drive version of the game, you actually, when you get to the doors that require the key, you actually have to hold down the fire button and press a sequence of directions, which is, personally, I think is pretty annoying. I'm glad the Amiga version doesn't go that way. Oof, that was close. I also hate the way that the game does that, and that if you're jumping across somewhere, you slow down if you collide with something, meaning that you're no longer going to make the jump. And there's the last monk, and there's the shop, and I have 90. And what can I get for 90? Oh, I can buy an axe. The axe is a pretty good weapon, actually. I'll go for that. You'll notice that the game does actually dim the brightness a little bit when you go inside certain places, which is a neat little graphical effect. I mean, graphically overall, this game is well above the standard you would normally get in games like this on the Amiga. And that coupled with the brilliant smooth parallax scrolling as well, basically disproves the whole theory that the Amiga could not contend against the consoles at the time. No, come on! Oh no way! That's my last life. I'm sure. I think it is. Yes, there is my game over message. So that is actually not a continue option that I've just selected there. That is just a yes, I do want to play again, because it's now thrown me all the way back to level 1 again. Right, I can afford the boomerang this time, so let's see what the boomerang weapon is like. That is pretty much all I can afford though. I have no extra lives or anything. Not a bad weapon. Not sure it's worth the 160 coins that it cost me, but some of these, not only is it annoying that you can't pick the coins up just by walking on them, but they don't stay on screen for very long either. Hey, I actually managed to pick up the extra life. That's the first time I've ever done that. Oh, no way, no way, no way. Give me all those coins back now. No, I didn't want to pick that up then. Right, I need to duck down to get the enemies. 44 seconds remaining. 22 seconds, 22 seconds. What can I do in 22 seconds? Yes. And I've got 140 coins to spend to get into level 3. And I've still got 3 lives remaining. So that's going to be axe level 2 then, for definite. And 2 health pickups. Oh, boss fight. I think I've definitely got the right weapon for this thing. And there we go, done. Oh, 100,000 points is an extra life. That's what that beeping's got to be. Is that it? End of level. Well, hey. Alright, how on earth do I get up there? Literally all that's going to happen here is I'm going to be forced to go back here when I get to the doorway, aren't I? Yeah, see, that's going to send me all the way back again. Why won't you go down there? There's just so many badly designed things in this game. It drags the whole thing down. No, see, it won't let me do it that way either. Oh. Well, there we go. So yeah, that's where the playtest is going to end. Let's see my final thoughts. Risky Woods is an immensely frustrating game to play, but not because it's bad. There's so much in it that's brilliant that I really wish I liked the game more than I do. The reason that it's frustrating is that it could have been great with just a couple of small fixes. There's no question that the presentation is top class. It makes a mockery of a lot of Amiga games by featuring smooth, colourful parallax scrolling, large, well-animated sprites, and having sound effects and music simultaneously. I really do think that it looks and sounds better. I really do think that it looks and sounds better than the Mega Drive version. The problems begin when you pick up the joystick to play it though. Despite responsive controls, everything about the basic design of the game seems like it's constantly trying to punish the player, and the worst example of this is the negative power-ups. Somehow Amiga Power had their inclusion down as one of the game's positives, and I'm not against the idea of them in principle, but why would you make them look exactly the same as power-ups that give you positive effects? There are other little annoyances too, like the in-game economy, having to crouch to pick up coins, and then losing them all whenever you die, and all of these little things end up working together to drag the game down. As expected, the game's difficulty is another sour point, and apparently after picking it up for publication, this was one of the things that EA tried to dilute. It's not helped by the fact that the game teases you with a continue option, only to send you all the way back to the start of level 1 after every game over message. Ranking the game against other similar titles proved to be quite tricky as a result. The presentation is well above the standard of a lot of the competition, but most of those games are more fun to play than this one. I'm going to stick it right down at the bottom of the recommended tier, as it's definitely a game that you should play, just be aware that it's probably going to wind you up quite a bit. This means that for a score, I don't think I could go above 7 out of 10, which is really disappointing as it's a game that definitely had the potential to be a 9 out of 10. That brings another episode of the re-review to a close. I really hope you enjoyed it. Have you played Risky Woods? If you have, I would love to know your opinions of it in the comments. All opinions expressed in this video are purely my own and not those of the UK Gaming Network team. It's also perfectly fine if you disagree with me. There's a link in the video description that will take you to our Discord, where you'll find a channel specifically for game suggestions, where viewers can drop the names of games that they'd like to see me cover on this series. You'll also find, in amongst the general gaming chat, our monthly score challenges and an ongoing quiz where the winner gets to set the next question. The next episode in this series will be coming out on Halloween itself, and in that video I'm going to be taking a look at Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, and delving into the history of Horrorsoft. In the meantime, I will have a brand new series starting on the 17th of October, where I compare and contrast two similar games to see which one is best. Thank you very much for watching this video, and until then, happy retro gaming everybody. Bye for now.